Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Anime Crackers. Crackers! Oh, we got candy!
I'm glad you bring snacks to my place. Thank you.
Let me just call it snacks. Maybe, I don't know, but it's upside down. I was actually out trying to hunt down my Tumblr for you today, but no luck.
I didn't hear this big pepper.
Inside joke. All right, so why are we here today? So last go round when we did one of these, we talked about some of the basic anime services that are out there for those of you who are either brand spanking new or like me getting back in. And you know, like I said, you guys' generation, you got it great because there's so many different services out there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's sort of an issue that everybody runs into when watching, and that's okay, where there's some things out there that's going to be subtitled, and there's going to be some things that are dubbed, and you know, some people don't see it as a big deal, and for others out there a lot more hardcore, it is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So coming at it from the angle I'm looking at it, back in my day, you had to get it where you can get it when you can get it. That sounds absolutely horrible way that came out. Anyway, but a lot of stuff, depending on your source, you know, whether it was video, like from Suncoast, or if you had some rental stores where you can get them from, you know, you either got the subtitle or the the dub version, and you just had to make do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of times now, depending on which streaming service that you're using, you got options. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to Crunchyroll route, you have to watch it right now. This week, you're going to get the subtitle version.
Right.
If you can wait a little while and you want to watch it on Funimation, you're going to get the dub version.
Mm-hmm.
So there are little picks in between. So what's the difference? Why is there such a debate on it? So I'm gonna let you pick up. What are some of your things when it comes to doing sub versus dub?
Okay, so for me overall, I have little to no preference on which I prefer. For me, it depends on how I start the anime. So for example, if I start watching an anime in dub, I'm used to the voices, I'm used to the mannerisms and the extra. So switching over to the sub is kind of like tricky. I'm like, oh, they don't sound the same, and vice versa. And for me, I do prefer, sometimes for certain situations, I do prefer the sub because there is small little nuances that are left in with sub like anime and movies that you don't always get in dub. Like some of it can be just, you know, translation, but a lot of it for me can be cultural.
Right.
Because for me, I studied Japanese for a bit. Like I'm nowhere near as, you know, fluent as some of my other friends who majored in Japanese. But for me, it's like when you're learning the language and how words are put together, how they do things, or how they're more, like for example, small talk and leaving space. Like with English and Americans, we tend to be, when it's like an empty space or just a void, you always have to fill it in with something like an extra noise or extra phrase or something because exactly. But in Japanese, that's not always the case. It's like usually once you say what you need to say, you don't necessarily need to fill in that's quiet.
Yeah.
And when you watch some things, like my example would be from Mary and the Witch's Flower. So for the first 30 minutes of the movie, we saw it in subbed, and it was just like, okay, you're picking up, there's little things here. Look, you didn't really notice anything different. But it wasn't until I saw the first 30 minutes of the dubbed that I noticed that they added extra sentences that in a way seemed unnecessary, or they changed the meaning of certain things, or added in filler where it's like, no, why would you say that, or why would you do that? So in those kind of cases, you know, there's a lot missing in the dub that you would find in the sub.
Right. Another issue as well is like you said, the literal translated meaning, because for instance, I watched both the sub and the dub version of Black Clover today just to kind of get started on that series. And I noticed like even how some of the sentence structures in both changed throughout. Like, you know, the subtitle may say one thing, but when you go hear it dubbed, you know, they're saying something else. And I mean, it's just those small differences that you have. Like, okay, I'm watching a subtitled film. I mean, this is honestly with almost any film. You know, when they have like that sentence, you're reading it one way, and then when you've read it that one way, and you hear it come out another way, like, okay, that's not exactly right. And I guess, when they're doing the dub, they have to make, sacrifices or changes based on how the lips are looking for that. But another bigger thing sometimes is the voice acting. You touched upon it a little bit, but another issue is with voice acting, because I do remember, like, a lot of them. Matter of fact, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. There's one movie that I really like called Detonator Organ, which now I'm going to have to go back and find the subtitle version, because I thought I had it, and I don't. My original disc disappeared, but I had my, believe it or not, I still have my DVD. I had a ripped DVD from years ago. Unfortunately, that ripped DVD only has the English version. And it's nowhere near, the voice actors are nowhere near as good in English as they were in Japanese.
Exactly.
And it's one of those rare ones where, the translation and the English dub are very close. But, like, for me, if anybody that's watched it, towards the end of the film, we have the big battle between Detonator Organ and his rival. There's a lot of dialogue going on, and most of the dialogue is being spoken by the villain, and it's just the way in Japanese how he's inflecting a lot of his words, and it's real deep and it's real throaty, and you're not getting that out of the voice dub when it's done over for English. It doesn't have that same impact, and it's one of those films that I've always liked in the original Japanese.
So. I can totally relate to that, because not to say anything bad about any English voice actors, but it's mainly a casting thing for me. Like some characters, you kind of expect them to sound a certain way, or you can imagine them sounding a certain way. Or if you've seen the anime, like, for example, for me, Hellsing. Like, when I first saw Hellsing, it was the first the TV version with I believe Crispin Freeman doing Alucard. Now his voice is phenomenal, it's point on, right? And it's not on point; it's point on, right? And it's the exact kind of voice you would want Alucard to have, and that always stuck with me. Like, yes, this is Alucard's voice. Now, when I started watching Bloodlust, I watched Bloodlust in the sub, because that's all Hulu have, was in the sub, and the voice actor for Alucard. Same thing. It's dead on. Like, it has that, that seductive, sweet, but yet whimsy, ha ha ha, but sarcastic and witty kind of voice. So it works. But for some characters, girl, can you handle that gun? Stop it. But it works. But then you have some characters, like, for example, Ash Ketchum in Pokemon. His voice acting has changed so many times over the years. It went from it just gotten more girly. Yeah. And I get it. He's still 10, prepubescent voice, so he has a light-ish voice with a little depth. I get that. But it's sometimes it's I see the direction you're going, but you're kind of missing the mark. Right. So sometimes when you go to the dub, I don't know what they do with their voice actors or their voice actors are very dedicated. So it's okay, you've committed more very well to this character. You've watched this series or something, and you're I'm in it to win it. Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah. And I think the only other thing as well, for example, with Black Clover, I'm really debating how I'm going to watch it, because I'm leaning more towards the subtitle version, because one of the main characters in there, he whines so much. Because he wants to be this wizard king, which is great, but the English dub is just so annoying for that. It's I want to get into the story, and I want to see how it plays out, but if the English dub is going to be this annoying, I'm almost ready to just watch a subtitle and call it a day.
And see, that relates to what I was saying earlier, when you hear something one way, for example, when you're watching the sub version of something and you're used to the characters, you're used to the emotion. Yeah. For me, switching over to the Ing is kind of hard, because I'm it's not giving me the same emotion. Right, because that's another point a friend of mine pointed out, actually, because we were watching Mary and the Witch's Flower together, and there was one point in the movie where Mary is going over the bridge because she's looking for the cats, and this is where she kind of goes into that supernatural realm kind of thing. Yeah. And the boy with her is telling her hey, you shouldn't do that. He makes a joke about her red hair, calling her a red-headed monkey. And when she's on that bridge, she kind of gives a little spiel saying I didn't ask for this, I want to change. I don't want to be this way kind of thing. Or she doesn't want her red hair because she got picked on it for it.
Yeah.
But when you listen to how it's done in Japanese and you listen to how it's done in English, it's like the Mary in with the Japanese or the the sub, it was just like a statement. She was just kind of saying it, but she was getting it out like I want to change, or she kind of.
Yeah.
But when you hear the English or the the dubbed, it's like
not that much of an inflection.
No, she tones it down, so it's like she kind of made it. It felt awkward, and then she had to cover it. Then the voice actor had to cover up saying, "Oh, I didn't mean to make this awkward. I'm going to leave." And it's just like, no, it's not meant to be awkward. She was just saying something, and then she walked off. So it's like.
Yeah, it just kind of misses that point.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing we want to talk about before we go is like, which is better. Well, we kind of talked about which is better, but for certain situations, and should you feel bad if you have friends that are hardcore into it? And I would say no. I feel like this: whatever it is that you're watching, whatever way you feel comfortable, both options are available. Watch it however you feel like watching it.
Exactly.
Just know that if you're going to watch it subtitled, you're going to need to pay attention because, you might miss like an important point or important plot twist.
Mm-hmm. Like if you turn your head, you're going to just miss
you'll miss. Because I know for me, there's a lot of things that I want to watch dubbed because there are a lot of times that I might get preoccupied doing something else. I might be doing some photo editing or typing up a document or something like that, and I'll have it running in the background because I'll turn and look. You know? But I know I'm not going to be able to watch everything that I want subtitled because I'm focused. I can't even pick up the tablet because the moment I look down, boom, you didn't miss something important.
Exactly.
But it's just the idea of, let me come back. Speaking to my nephew today, he was even saying that, some of his friends were teasing him about it, but he said it was a good point. He said there are a lot of times when I'm doing homework and if it's on in the background, I have to have it dubbed because I want to be able to listen to it.
Exactly.
He said, it's hard for me to watch it when it's subtitled because when it's subtitled, I have to pay attention to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he said, I don't want to miss an important part of the show. I was like,
yeah,
you do what you got to do.
Exactly. And I agree with that.
And again, coming back to one of the services out there, again, you have Funimation. Funimation does make a point of putting a lot of their shows on with English dubs, although you're not going to get everything on time. So, for instance, for those of you that are out there still trying to get into Attack on Titan for the second season is not available.
Correct.
If you want to watch second season, you're going to have to hit up Crunchyroll and watch it subtitled. And just deal with it until they get the licensing right to put it on Funimation complete because there's only the first 2 episodes that are on there that are English dubbed. But
or you can also check out Hulu because Hulu does both. They have two. They won't combine them. They'll do separate ones.
You know what? And I think it's on Hulu, but
it's not on Hulu.
Yeah, that's right. It's not on Hulu
But
yet.
Hulu in general, they do both.
Because I know that it's on Amazon Prime, but Prime's going to charge you $20. So $20 versus checking it out on Crunchyroll for free.
Right.
And
just deal with commercials.
Right. Just deal with commercials and subtitles. So
yes.
So yeah, other than that, folks, again, if you got some questions, if you got some suggestions and stuff that we can talk about, stuff that we should be watching, that you think is worth talking about,
drop them in the comments.
Drop them in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, follow us on Facebook. We're on the web at popcultureuncovered.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PC Uncovered. And just check out more of our adventures. Just kind of a little bit of a sneak peek. I've started binging My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got tongue twisted. So, the 3rd season is supposed to start up in April. We don't have an exact date yet, but if the gods are with us, we got something big planned for that. You know what I'm saying?
Hush, hush.
So keep it tuned here. A couple of weeks, we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about Katsucon, some of the fun and not so fun sides of Katsucon. Lava booty.
Hashtag lava booty.